So I've got this up here, Doug, the highlighted copy that you sent to me. And I'm
Yeah.
just going to fade this in. Now, people won't be able to see us, but they'll be able to hear us, and we'll just walk our way through this document.
Well, and as they can see, I also included where I got it with from Laws of Justice, Government of Canada, under Acts. So this is the full text HTML. And so I cut and pasted this into a Word doc so we could go through it. Now I also have the PDF that you get from the website that I could, if people want it, I'll put it into the Skype here tonight, and you can post it because I can't. You hear me, Duke?
Yeah, I hear you. Sorry, I'm just reading the YouTube chat and trying to sneak in and follow the Facebook chat at the same time. I hear you, sir.
Okay. Anyway, so let's get started. And the name of the act, it's called an act to give effect to the requirement for clarity as set out in the opinion of the Supreme Court of Canada in the Quebec Sessions reference. And this was done in the year 2000, June 29th, 2000.
Can you just elaborate a little bit on the difference between an opinion of the court and a ruling of the court?
Well, it's the same. It's the same thing that we do, Duke. I mean, I have 100,000 opinions, as do you, about you name it. I like a certain kind of beer, and that's my opinion. You might like another kind of beer, and that's your opinion. So, and that's really all the Supreme Court is doing. They're just giving an opinion. But the illegal and unlawful federal authority decided to create a what they call a law on that opinion. Now, if it was a ruling, there would have to be a case and a court case in front of them,
Right.
and that they would make a ruling at. In other words, they would be resolving a dispute. So you and I go to court, we get into an argument. The court then makes a ruling, which is to settle our argument. The opinion is not the same as a ruling. The opinion is just the court going, well, we think this is our opinion.
Yeah, it has no legal enforcement qualities to it.
Well, now it does, according to them.
Yeah,
Now
according
it does,
to the criminals.
Well, and you got to ask yourself, really, folks, Section 59 of their Constitution Act was never ratified. And in order for it to come into supreme law in Canada, they needed to ratify it, and they have yet to do that. So how does something like this have any standing in law? This was done in 2000. They had to ratify their Constitution in 1982. How many years ago before that was 18 years? They never did. They tried, Meech Lake Accord, the Charlottetown Accord, but it never came to fruition. Anyways, let's move on. So we look at the preamble where it says, whereas the Supreme Court of Canada has confirmed that there is no right under international law or under the Constitution of Canada, don't forget, they haven't ratified it, and I've put this in red, international and Canada are maritime jurisdictions, so no kidding, no right. That I included that. Because both international and Canada are maritime jurisdictions. And for the National Assembly Legislature of the Government of Quebec to take effect the secession of Quebec from Canada unilateral. So this was happening when Quebec was looking to, once again, leave.
Yep, they keep threatening to separate. Often, like this whole issue here in 2000, most Canadians thought the whole separation issue with Quebec was over and done with René Lévesque and his separatist vote way back in, when was that, the late 70s?
Oh, yeah, 78.
80s? Right. After
yeah,
the whole FL2 crisis and Pierre Laporte and Rene Cross and all that crap went down, the rest of Canada thought it all sort of went to sleep, right?
Well, and don't forget that in 76, that's when Walter Cool gave him the letter.
Yeah.
That said you can't have a divorce without first having a marriage. You're already separate.
Yeah.
It's all about money and power. That's all it is. Anyways, we'll go back. And so the second paragraph says, whereas any proposal relating to the breakup of a democratic state, I always thought that was funny, is a matter of the utmost gravity and is of fundamental importance to all of its citizens. And once again, in red, I've put in brackets slaves. Whereas the government, the corporate regime of any province of Canada incorporated, is entitled to consult its population by referendum on any issue and is entitled to formulate the wording of the referendum question. So let's do that one again. Whereas the government of any province of Canada is entitled to consult its population by referendum on any issue and is entitled to formulate the wording of its referendum question. Not you, the people. Not you, the people. No. No.
So all of you out there thinking, we're going to have Rick. Wait a minute. The government gets to decide the wording of the question in your referendum, not you.
Well, and it gets worse. Whereas the Supreme Court of Canada it's no longer an opinion, has determined that the result of a referendum on secession of a province from Canada must be free of ambiguity, both in terms of the question asked and in terms of the support it achieves. In that result is to be taken as an expression of the democratic will that will rise to an obligation to enter into negotiations. Can't just leave. Now it's negotiations that might lead to secession.
So once they give you permission to tell them you want to leave, then you get to sit down with them and negotiate the possibility of leaving, which means
Correct.
Think of negotiations with your trade unions or with your 5-year-old granddaughter who says, Grandpa, I need a donut. What do you do when the government says, well, we just won't recognize your referendum? Tough titties. Go back to work, slave.
Well, and then, but it gets better.
Oh, of course it does. This is the federal government. They can't just put it a one-layer cake. Oh, no. They're going to...
So it goes on to say, whereas the Supreme Court of Canada has stated that democracy means more than a simple majority rule. Really? So they have come out and said it means more than a majority rule, yet every law dictionary on planet Earth says majority rule. But the Supreme Court of Canada somehow thinks it's above the law, once again, and hence the simple majority rule that a clear majority in favor of secession must be required to create an obligation to negotiate secession. So you got to have a clear... Now, the clear majority is based on their opinion of what a clear majority is. So what do you think their clear majority is going to be? 100%? You must have 100% of the people agreeing to succeed so you can come to the negotiating table to secede.
That 100% is going to be counted by our electronic vote counting machines that we program.
And then you only get to negotiate. It's still not, everybody votes, 100% vote to leave, but it's still a negotiation. I mean, how ridiculous is this? And then it goes on to say, and that a qualitative evaluation is required to determine whether a clear majority in favor of secession exists in the circumstances. So not only do you have to have a clear majority, now they're going to put a council together, a group of people to make sure that you've had a clear majority. And they're going to determine it. I mean, I don't know, the Rick people and the Wexit people, they really need to read
and the grand jury people.
Well, the grand jury people have something else going on, and I think that, the BC Bud that they're doing is taking good care of them. And so it goes on to say, whereas the Supreme Court of Canada has confirmed that in Canada, the secession of a province to be lawful would require an amendment to the Constitution of Canada. So, for this secession to become lawful, you have to have an amendment to the Constitution that isn't lawful. Wow. How's that working out?
That's quite a double
So they
standard.
didn't ratify the Constitution in 1982, 1987, and 1995, but they say it would take an amendment to that unlawful and illegal document to leave. Yeah, so it says would require an amendment to the Constitution of Canada. And I've written in there, this is my note, what Constitution they're referring to, the photocopy in Ottawa?
The photocopy
I'm trying
of
to
the
be-
British North America Act?
Yeah, that's the one they have in the archives in Ottawa. The original's sitting in the UK archives because it's their property.
Yeah. It was never a
it goes
Canadian
on-
document.
Yeah, it goes on to say that such an amendment would pre-force required negotiations in relation to secession involving at least the governments of all the provinces and the government of Canada, and that those negotiations would be governed by the principles of federalism, democracy, constitutionalism, and the rule of law and the protection of minorities. So what I've done here, Duke, I've added definitions into this document so that we can understand what federalism is. And it says a principle of government that defines the relationship between the central government at the national level and its constituent units at the regional, state, or local levels. Under this principle of government, power and authority is allocated between the national and local government units, such that each unit is delegated a sphere of power and authority only it can exercise, while other powers must be shared. That's not here in Canada.
No.
So we look at what democracy is. Well, that's mob rule. That's probably here in Canada. Constitutionalism. Well, considering that Canada doesn't have one, I'll read it anyway. The principles of a constitutional government or adherence to them. Constitutional rule or authority. That's what it defines as. And then the rule of law. This is fun. A state of order in which events conform to law. Yeah, well, the problem is that Canada doesn't have the rule of law. We don't have law of the land. That's the rule of law. We have color of law because Canada only exists on the water. If you look under the Interpretations Act and look up the definition of Canada, as per their definition, it's the internal waters and external seas. That's what they call Canada.
Yep.
So, moving on. Whereas, in light of finding by the Supreme Court of Canada that it would be it would be for elected representatives to determine what constitutes a clear question and what constitutes a clear majority in a referendum held in a province on secession. We'll just stop there for a second and let's look at this. It would be for the elected representatives to determine what constitutes the clear question that you can ask and what constitutes a clear majority. So their job is on the line if the province secedes. So do you think for 1 second that the elected representatives want to lose their job by giving you the clear question and a clear majority in a referendum?
No.
Yeah, sure they will. They'll be fair and square with all of us. Really? Have you read the Little Child case?
I think my audience knows the Little Child case.
So there's how much fair and square you're going to get. Then it goes on to say the House of Commons, as the only political institution elected to represent all Canadians, has an important role in identifying what constitutes a clear question and a clear majority sufficient for the Government of Canada to enter into negotiations in relation to secession of a province from Canada. Talk about stacking the deck 100%
really
in their favor. And yeah, this is like you said, this is Rick. This is the referendum people that are running around pushing that, and this is the new Wexit people that are pushing this.
Yeah.
And so you want to waste your time?
Anyone who thinks, well, we're going to start a political party, like the veterans, who think they're going to start a political party and push to have referendums and we're going to get a vote on it in Parliament. Well, dude, they've already voted laws that totally, basically, in several different stab wounds, they kill any move for a referendum. They silence we the people. That's Doug's reading you is the Canadian version of shut up, we the people.
Well, and then we'll go to the last, and whereas it is incumbent on the government of Canada not to enter into negotiations that might lead to the secession of a province from Canada and that could consequently entail the termination of citizenship and other rights that the Canadian citizen residents in the province enjoy as full participants in Canada, unless the population of that province has clearly expressed its democratic will that the province secede from Canada. So think about that for a second.
Doesn't it already require them to express their democratic will to leave Canada before they even begin negotiations?
Correct. But here's the funny part. The termination of citizenship and other rights of Canadian citizens. So when you secede from Canada, meaning that you're giving them the big finger and telling them to fuck off, excuse my language, but you're losing your citizenship. So basically, if you terminate your if this causes the termination of a citizenship, you can't have a referendum and you can't leave. It's a catch-22.
Basically, yeah.
That's what it's saying. Unless the population of the province has clearly expressed its democratic will that the province secede from Canada. So that would mean 100% of the population of the province must want to secede. 100% of the province. Can you think of anything that you put 10 people in a room to agree on what toppings they go on a pizza? How many pizzas are you going to have to order? You get only just one.
Everybody gets cheese and pepperoni. That's it.
Yeah, okay. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Having them agree to it. Have two people try to agree to it. Let alone several million people all have to agree. They say here, it clearly expressed its democratic will that the province secede from Canada. So what would be the democratic will? In order for the termination of citizenship, which will happen upon secession, you'd need 100% showing that they are willing to give up their citizenship. Not 99, not 99.99, not 98, but 100%. Otherwise, if it terminates citizenship, guess what? You can't do it. So they leave that to the very end. That's the catch-22. If it terminates the citizenship, guess what? Your referendum, even to negotiate secession, can't go forward.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is why any of these different movements that you see out there that claim we're going to do this and attack them from within, we're going to get this and we're going to use the BNA to do this. We're going to do this and we're going to form this group and we're going to use the what was it? Oh, the Magna Carta and Article 61. None of that is going to work. Not only, and here it is right here, not only did the Supreme Court of Alberta tell the people of Alberta, You have no choice. He can do whatever he wants once they're elected. They can thumb their nose at you and still get a paycheck because they're politicians. What Doug is showing you is that you have absolutely no ability to change that. None. You can't fix the system from within. They've had almost 100 years of writing laws just like this one that make it impossible for you, the citizen, to use their system to empower you. Everything about their system is designed to keep you under their thumb.
By the way, coming back to Article 61 of the Magna Carta, by the way, it has to be the Magna Carta 1225. It couldn't be the 1215. 1215 was never ratified. So it have to be the 1225. Doesn't matter. Article 61, the last time it was ever used successfully in the world was in 1688. Last time it was actually ever used successfully was in 1688. Because that was the last time the Catholics ruled the UK. And that Magna Cartas were all put away on a shelf and not brought out in law ever again. Because in 1689, the English Bill of Rights was created by William and Mary, which basically negated the Magna Carta, which was why 1688 was the last time it was successfully used. And so people who talk about using the Magna Carta today haven't a clue. They need to study their history. They need to understand what they're talking about because they are blowing smoke up the poor listeners' butts.
Yep. Yep. And I've been saying that for a long time, and I am happy to say that a large number of the quote-unquote listeners are catching on to these facts. They're starting to sit back and realize, yeah, you can't use something that ceased to exist hundreds of years ago. You can't use something that only was created by a foreign government, only exists by the power of that foreign government, and has nothing to do with we, the people. Slowly, people are starting to catch on to the importance of those three little words, we, the people. They are the most powerful words in any free society. Whether it's a democracy, a republic, they are, without a doubt, the most powerful words.